Okay, so good afternoon, teacher. Good afternoon, maybe class two. We are going to talk about the curricular threads, and of course, from the curricular planning. At first, I'm going to talk about a little introduction about it and some basic stuff about it before going into the curricular threads. Okay, so the three main goals of the EFL curriculum are: the first one is to develop learners' understanding of the world of other cultures, their own, and to communicate their understanding and views to others through English. It is basically to understand the somehow a type of variety or a big amount of different cultures that are around the world, and of course their own culture or own reality as it is in our education, and of course with the aiming to at the end of the day have an understanding of all of them, which is going to help us with the or make us go through our English process of learning. The second one, it is to develop the personal, social, intellectual skills needed to achieve their potential, participate productively in an increasingly globalized world that operates English. It says that, well, we must develop all of, or not only our social skills, which are maybe overrated today, but I think that are very important too. Of course, the intellectual skills that are another one that are very not overrated. These ones are underrated, and of course, the personal, which is one of the most basic stuff, but it is still related to the social maybe, and potentially make them or just combine these three options to try to make it into this increasingly globalized world that is most of it is with the English language. And the next one, to create a love of learning language starting at a young age by means of engaging and positive learning experiences in order to foster students' motivation to continue learning English through EGB and BGU. Maybe to create as a first relation with the language since a young age. From my experience, I learned something which is I think one of the most important things that affect, but not as a bad way, affect my future career. What it is, I grew up like watching shows that are from very different culture from mine. That it was by watching these TV shows, and later on in my life, I felt very comfortable or or very into it, into this culture, that it was affected for me at the young age, and that was my experience to this creation of love to the learning of these languages. In my case, with the English, but that's what we are aiming to do in these three main goals, and of course in the third one, as I'm talking about. Okay, so the next one, it is the CLIL, which is the meaning of, or what is this CLIL? Means critical thinking skills and curricular threats. We are going into the curricular threats, not yet, but this is another basic stuff about it. We have the CLIL, which clearly means critical thinking skills and curricular threat, which this is the aiming of the CLIL. And well, these are the forces that are the culture, citizenship, communication, cognition, and content, which are divided in these curricular threads or in this section. And then we have the subsection, which is a more in depth part of them. Well, inside of the culture and citizenship, we have these two threads, which is communication and cultural awareness, and oral communication, and of course, listening and speaking being part of it. And inside of it, which is a sub thread, as it says, there is the intercultural awareness and an identity, the social competence and values. That both of them are nothing without any communication. And of course, the identity of each one of us. There is the oral communication, the listening and speaking, as I talk about it, and there is of course the listening skills, the spoken production, and the spoken introduction. Not even the spoken production, as well. We are ready to speak to the world or all of our knowledge about English and all that stuff. But we have to have we must have a spoken interaction as well, which is this is like the feedback from the production. We have to learn to speak with a reply or in different situations, just to improve or skill. And that's the idea between both of this. Then we have the next ones, that it's the reading, which is which inside of the reading there is the literary rich environment, the literacy rich environment, the reading comprehension, the use of resources and study skills, and the cross curricular content. Nothing new about the reading. All of our lives are we're being affected by this. I remember reading a lot from my English experience, where my English learning experience in high school. We used a lot of reading, so we already know that. Of course, the writing. There's the next one, the next curricular thread, that it's the initial literacy and the text production. Of course, we already work a lot on this as well. Well, in my case, I had this experience. Maybe I've heard I've talked with some students. Well, with our friends from our cycle that unluckily I talk about it about the English and all the thing, and they told me that they don't even have English at a very young at a very young age. So maybe they didn't work with this, but well, in most of the cases, and as the curriculum says, this must be doing. From what I told you recently, maybe it is not happening really. And the last one, the language through the arts, which is the literacy, text and context, the creative writing, and creative thinking skills. From my experience, maybe we are missing these ones. I haven't experienced these ones exactly. Maybe the literacy, text and context, but well, we're missing a lot. We're missing a lot, and that's well one of the problems of it. But this is the clue. Okay. And our conclusions from this. It is the content is organized as related to the curricular thread, which makes completely sense. The content it needs to be just exactly as the curricular threads, but as I talk about it, maybe we are missing it. We're missing this one, but well, that's we're talking about the curriculum. And the language is graded and adapted by level of complexity and abstraction. Yeah, I think this one is correct. It is right, and it makes sense, of course. That of course the language if you are in the last year of your whole high school education, you are not going to have a very basic level of English. You're not going to have like a A1. So that's the point of it. If it's good, and of course all of these conclusions all were construct and well organized between, of course, which the next one is skills are developed gradually, of course, from level to level. You are going to improve your level of skills. as we are not the same level from your first year in this school to the last one. It is not going to be like that. It makes a lot of sense. And the writing is seen as a means to achieving learning objective, not as an end to learner. Well, writing in my case, I think that listening may be one something that we are missing, but writing it is going to be one of the key things or key skills to know that we are achieving this learning objective, but not lastly or at the end of the learning process. And that's it about it.
Curricular Thread 1: Communication and Cultural Awareness. This is comprised of two aspects. The first is intercultural awareness and identity, and the second is social competence and values. Uh, the first one, today in our increasingly globalized world, intercultural awareness is more important than ever. Here, using English language, students can have a richer understanding of one's own culture as well as cultures around the world. Second, through activities that promote intercultural awareness, students can become aware of their own culture by understanding how they view other cultures from the viewpoint of their own and how their culture is viewed by others. Finally, by talking about where they come from and learning about children in other countries, learners will develop a wider perspective of reality and cultural sensitivity. Second, social competence and values. Social competence, or the ability to interact socially, also plays an integral role in the development of the young learners. Learners develop social skills by learning to work together cooperatively, negotiation, accepting different points of view, and reciprocity. Second, through the using of conversation, role plays, and group works, students acquire the skills needed to develop self-efficacy and morals. And finally, by becoming socially competent children, we set the stage for later improved social interactions as adolescents and adults. The content of this aspect promote the tolerance by leading to learn respect for themselves, for other people, and natural environment.
Okay, good afternoon, teacher and classmates. Now I'm going to explain to you the curricular thread number 2. It is oral communication. In oral communication, we can also found listening and speaking macro skills. Okay, but first of all, we need to know what does listening and speaking means. According with Richards in 2006, listening and speaking are skills that should be seen as a holistic process. In other words, this means that learners need to use a lot of resources in order to increase their knowledge. Some of the sources in this case can be listening and speaking skills, watching through videos and movies, reading, and also repeating and imitating what the teacher says. We also have that the two macro skills should be integrated in the classroom, taking care to assure that they be taught within a meaningful communicative context. This means that the teachers need to take into account the necessity of the students at the moment of teaching something. We also have that the EFL curriculum recognizes the importance of listening and speaking as skills essential in the communicative competence of English language learning. Oral communication is also divided into three subthreads. The first one is listening skills. Listening is the key to all effective communication. Then we have spoken production, which is the process of uttering articulated sounds or words. In other words, this means how humans generate meaningful speech. Finally, we have spoken interaction. It is the process of interacting, express ideas and feelings to the others using the target language. And the first subthread that we have here is the listening skills. First, the act of listening is a highly complex process in which the listener must activate a schema, infer, predict, construct meaning, and use short and long-term memory functions almost simultaneously. And this part is so important, and in simple words, it tries to say to us that we need to put attention to every single listening that we are going to listen, and also we need to put attention to what the teacher says. Because if we don't put attention and if we don't use all these characteristics, we are not going to understand anything. Second, we have that the learners need to listen to texts that are related to their age, interests, background, and language needs. This part is so important in the teaching process because if the teachers take into account all these characteristics, they are going to give an effective class and they are going to encourage students to participate in the same. In the third point, we have that the teacher can use different strategies, including listening for guests, listening for detail, inferring, and predicting. This part is important because teachers are going to use a lot of strategies and the more comfortable for the students and for the class. As additional information, we have that the use of ICT is recommended as a means to expose learners to a variety of authentic listening texts, from songs and poetry to short dialogues and informative texts such as advertisement and announcements. This part is important because nowadays, with the use of the internet, we can get all these resources as free, and also we can have these resources inside and outside the class. Okay, the second subthread is the spoken production. The spoken production subthread is focused on the principle of fluency over accuracy. What does this mean? This means that if you speak English with a high level of accuracy, it means that you speak correctly with very few mistakes. But if you speak fluently, it means that you speak easily, quickly, and with few pauses. For that reason, it says that the fluency is more important than the accuracy. And then we have that the learners will learn the sounds of English through motivating and engaging tasks aimed to increase their confidence levels in regards to the language. This part is important because teachers are going to create some tasks in order to increase and motivate the students to participate. One example of these strategies it is group works. We also have that studies shown that in young children, inhibition is low and the tendency to imitate is high. This is normal, and it not applies only to children. It applies to all people that are starting to learn a new language, because most of the people are going to repeat what the other says without taking into account what this means. Then we have that in general basic education, learners will start the speaking production through imitation, using songs, rhymes, tongue twisters, and chants. And this is normal because when you teach to kids, you are not going to use advanced resources to them because they are not going to understand. You are going to use games and some of these songs and rhythms in order to catch the attention of them because the kids can distract them easily way in a boring class. Then we have that spoken production is also closely related to pronunciation and intelligibility. The other subthread that we have is the spoken interaction. Oral communication comprises a set of key skills that can be used for collaborative learning. Collaborative learning is so important in the classroom because with collaborative learning, we can develop skills of interaction. And the skills of interaction are used in the role of group work as well as the social element of group work. And what this means or how group work improves spoken interaction. Group work encourages students to interact with each other and participate with the objective of improve their skills and also with the objective of don't be shy during the class. For that reason, teachers organize these groups. Some skills that can be improved in these groups can be the confidence and motivation, the problem solving, the participation in risk-taking by accepting trial error, and the role of mistakes in language learning, encouragement of linguistic creativity and expression. This part is important because we have to notice or we have to take into mind something. Uh, Students are going to feel comfortable talking with other students because they are going to talk about too many topics. But if the students talk directly with the teachers, they are going to feel a little bit uncomfortable and shy because sometimes students believe that the teachers are going to use only technical language, and that is not true. Finally, we have the subthread spoken interaction. The spoken interaction also includes both verbal and non-verbal communication. This part is so important because we cannot communicate only using our voice. We can communicate using a lot of resources, and what resources or non-verbal resources is the gestures or writing something. In verbal, as it says, is a speech or listening to something. And we also have the communication strategies can be asking for clarification and paraphrasing, along with the function of language in various communication situations. Examples, online interaction, phone, and presentations. All these things are related because when we ask for a clarification, we are going to interact with other persons and we are going to get an answer. And the important point here is that interaction is the key for communication and for listening skills and for speaking skills. And that's all related with the thread number two.
Curricular Thread 3 Reading. The principal goal of this curricular thread is to develop learners who are willing and able to interact autonomously with written text in order to do a variety of tasks such as extract information, learn about the world around them, and communicate. Four subthreads are considered. The first one is the literacy-rich environment. It is based on the consideration that acquisition of reading and spoken language can improve in literacy-rich environment. So, classrooms that support this literacy-rich environment will include ICT such as Wi-Fi, time for independent reading, wearables, and labels on classroom objects that allows to students to enrich their vocabulary and literacy. This literacy-rich environment creates access to a particular culture, that is the print culture, which perceives reading and language as a social practice. It means identifying with and belonging to a particular community with particular intentions. A set of practices that each community is building, rebuilding, and categorizing in a certain way. As Susan Huddleston notes, literacy serves people by providing one medium through individuals can learn about the world and share their understanding with others, make maintain connections with other people, enjoy the richness of the language, and make some changes in the world. I think that's the best. Along this vein, it is clearly that students to become literate in their mother tongue as well as the foreign language have ample opportunities to comprehend the national and personal identity in a more complex, deeper, and richer level. So it is important to mention that learning English as a foreign language is seen as an act of inclusion because one who knows English can communicate with a broader range of people from other countries and contexts. As we know, English has become the language of science and technology as well. So, those who cannot read and write in English may be limited for future opportunities that can contribute to their personal or academic development. For example, traveling for pleasure or being considered for a scholarship or future job positions. So that's why knowing another language is an essential component of being a global citizen. It is also important to know that primary and secondary school are the ideal places to encourage students to access and participate in literacy-rich activities. For example, forums, theater performances, reading, writing for school magazines or newspapers and so on, that guarantees the better personal and social development.
Reading comprehension. Reading comprehension involves understanding discourse analysis as it occurs when contrasting styles, activating schemas, recognizing connectors, and linking words that help organize text. In other words, reading is equivalent to comprehension, and the purpose of education is to train people to self-regulate their read through the autonomous application of a series of reading strategies. Through this, students will improve their critical thinking skills, enhance their study skills, and use reading text as a source of information. Through reading, students can improve grammar, spelling, vocabulary, and punctuation since read texts are good model of the language itself. Okay, so let's continue the next part. Use of resource and study skills. Another goal of the EFL curriculum in terms of reading is to educate people to use that variety of resource and source of information that surround every day. In addition, reading is seen as a resource for improving and developing study skills, which make it an essential component of any EFL curriculum, essential component of any language curriculum. And finally, cross-curriculum content. The purpose of this thread is overlap subject content from the other curriculum of EGB and BGU on English language use in order to create interest, increase motivation to learn, and establish authentic income for communicating with the foreign language.
Curricular thread 4. Writing. Writing is highly cognitive and metacognitive. These are strategies that are used to incorporate new knowledge and make decisions. Intellectual act which takes into consideration a plethora of prerequisites such as intention of author, the desire to communicate and share ideas, knowledge of vocabulary, text types, and organization of each, identification and understanding of audience and purpose, and ability to manipulate the reading code. As a result of these considerations, competence in reading is a complex process which must be developed gradually and progressively. The four skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing up to this point, they are interrelated and must be integrated in the classroom. Thus, the four skills are part of an integrated approach to language learning and not be completely separate from one another. Also, the reading curriculum thread has been further broken down into two aspects. One, initial literacy, and two, text production, which my partners will speak.
Now let's have a look at the first aspect of the fourth curricular thread writing, initial literacy. The literacy events are part of everyday life. For example, when we receive an manual, when we read a birthday card, or when we jot down an idea. And with ICT, the literacy skills have become a part of learners' contexts, and not only at the school, but at home as well. Sometimes the writing this becomes problematic because writing is less natural than speaking, and the writer is much more distant from the reader. Now let's have a look at the factors that influence in the initial literacy. The first one is the nature of the written forms of the first language. This is related to the natural process of learning of our first language, and this knowledge could be transferred from our first language to the second language, in this case English. So the learners will need to develop understandings of new cues in order to develop literacy and foreign language. And also, because of the different graphophonetic structures of their mother tongue and the English, the students uh, will will learn extra reading skills and new letters and relationships in order to become a literary user of English. The second one is the learner's previous experience. Learners who are struggling with literacy L1, yeah, mother tongue, will face challenge in the second language, the foreign language, in this case English, and sometimes occurs something called backward transfer, where the learners apply the second language or foreign language literacy skills to the first language. The third one is the learner's knowledge of the foreign language. This is related to the oral skills and the oral communication. They are important in the English language as a foreign language, because we have the students through their listening and speaking, they can develop an awareness of phonological structures, and they establish an understanding of the letters and the sounds. Then, through vocabulary, students can build word recognition and hold ideas and thoughts. And the last one, the learner's age. The age is important to consider as well, because the younger the child, the more likely he or she is still developing literacy skills in their first language. And as you know, the children are still mastering their motor skills needed to form letters and shapes join letters into words and words into sentences. So the teacher have to include some strategies, simple strategies for their level. For example, include interest in letters and words and reading single words or simple sentences based on very familiar subjects. And the EFL literacy instruction must find a balance between a focus on meaningful exposure and explicit instruction. The teachers in this case should be focused on literacy and not just on oral communication, and learners should be immersed in written literature. And the FL curriculum, as I said, made a connection among macro skills and real and the arts to immerse the students in the language, and that's it. And then the next part is the text production.
Okay, continue with the exposition. Into the curriculum streets number 4, the writing, we also have the text production. As you can see here, Messi in 2001 sees writing as the interpretative process by nature, since it involves out of the symbolic interplay between writer, text, and reader. Thus, throughout the EFL curriculum, writing is treated as a social practice. In other words, it always has a context, purpose, and audience. This curriculum treats of writing considers writing production to be a communication tool used for transmitting information, ideas, and knowledge. Also, writing is considered like a way to learn. Through writing, people express what they know and thus discover what they don't know. While writing, various cognitive skills are put to use, for example, analyze, compare, classify, deduce, relate, and interpret. Thus, we see that in the process of writing, learners are encouraged, if not obligated, to work within the higher domains of Bloom taxonomy, with these three domains like analyze, evaluate, and create. Also, process writing encourages learners to think about and use language in creative and critical manner. The art of writing includes important aspects such as handwriting and the mechanic of writing, including the use of thick for writing text, known as typography, spelling patterns, and the role of phonetics in English languages spelling, such as no correspondence of phonemics or graphemes, irregular spelling rules, and silent letters. And number three, layout and organization as dictated by the text type, recognizing difference between L1 and L2 writing styles, identifying specific formats within the text types. In this sense, writing can be used for learning purpose as the process of writing makes throughout the ideas visible to others, facilitating reflection and self-regulation of throughout the beliefs. Writing can be used as a link to connect with others. This is specifically evident in the use of the TIC, where learners may engage in writing activities such as message, conversation, and email, or projects of other nature such as collaborative writing assignment.
Now I'm going to talk about the fifth curricular thread that is language through the arts. To talk about this language through the art, it's important to mention Dewey because he claimed that the role of education was not only to prepare students for later life, but also to engage students wholly in life at the present moment. But he further claimed that the most effective way to stimulate this engagement is by involving the four occupations of childhood, that is, conversation, inquiry, making things, and artistic expression. Artistic expression is so important because, as you know, the arts can involve the students completely, that is, intellectually, socially, emotionally, and physically. For that reason, we can say that the thread of language through the arts is a fundamental component of EFL curriculum. Also, it is divided in three sub-threads. That is, the first one, literary text in context. The next, creative writing. The last one, creative thinking skills. Now I'm going to talk about literary text in context. So this sub-thread takes the broad philosophy that literary texts are source of stories and themes. So these stories and themes represent a very important approach to language learning by consider both oral and written text as a rich resource for the participation of students in the authentic use of the foreign language. Also, as you know, stories are very useful resource because stories invite the learners to enter an imaginary world and through the interaction with this imaginary world engage in the language in a variety of contexts. Also, use stories allows teachers to introduce new vocabulary, to develop their creativity, their imagination, so enrich their thinking skills. Also, with this curricular thread, literary text should be considered not just written, like instruction, um, stories, legends, myths, but also oral text, like stories, verbal instruction, rhymes, songs, and even jokes. For that reason, tell a story, it can be considered an oral activity because the student can listen and can interact, can participate in. Continue, Juliana.
Okay, now I'm going to explain about the literary text in Educación General Básica. In this level, the students will be given increased exposure to literary texts in the hopes of making them better and create active readers. The purpose of the literary text in Educación General Básica is to stimulate a joy of reading and to start reading habits for the future. In this part, it's very important the use of the literary text in the EFL classroom should be viewed as a means for awakening and enhancing the learners' imagination, sensibility,
and language macro skills. The next slide is about the literary text in Bachillerato General Unificado. In this part, the study of literary text, in this case, literature is more specialized because the learners in this level must be capable of examining, enjoying, and appreciating literary text in terms of structure and genre. This, the next slide is about a common goal in each level of the education. Of the specific objectives at each level of education, the one thing they both have in common is the goal of creating lifelong readers with the creative and critical thinking skills need to interact with the literary text in order to express global humanistic concepts of a personal, social, and cultural nature. And the next slide is about the sub-3 literary texts in context. There are two main things. The first is about the EFL curriculum puts a focus on literary text as a vehicle to facilitate language learning and as a stimulus for motivation in the classroom. It's very important to take into account the opportunities the text offer for language learning. The second thing is about for each level, a list of recommended titles based on language level, interest by age, and relevance to foreign language learning. In this part will be provided to teachers so that they may create a selection of texts that are appropriated so they particular learners and classroom. Continue with my partner Angie. The next slide.
The next sub-thread is creative writing. Here we have some aspects of creative writing. First, the act of creative writing creates a relationship between the student and the literary text, because when the student are in contact with the written or spoken word, the students make the word their own and play with the words. It's important to know that there is not a right way to do creative writing. Here we have some tips for teachers. The first one is that the creative writing has to develop in workshop. It means during the class in order to receive a feedback from the teacher and the classmates. The second one, in order to develop creative writing, we have to start with short text. For example, a riddle or short songs lyric. With these activities, the learners will learn how to express their emotions and feelings, because when students listen to a song, they can understand how the words works and how to use these words. The third point is that the creative writing task should come from students' interest or likes, and this task has to be relevant to their daily lives. And the last one is about how, what are the tasks that we have to do with our students in order to develop this thread. We have to have activities about free writing or complete a very simple short story, or also writing a diary. Next, we have my classmate, Carmen.
The other sub-thread is creative thinking skills. By participating in creative activities such as music, art, and dance, students will be stimulated and motivated to integrate multiple modes of communication and expression through the use of language. When they apply an artistic education in schools, they can improve skills like promote all aspects of communication, prepare students for lifelong learning opportunities, encourage risk-taking and improves self-confidence. Encourage the development of social skills. Improves self-regulation, memory, motivation, and attention. Students immersed in language learning through an arts education program enjoy improved skills. Problem-solving skills through participation in games and puzzles. Generating and stating ideas by responding to and evaluating oral and writing text, for example, stories, songs, poems, etc. Making mistakes and learning from what worked and what did not. Risk-taking and having confidence in one's judgment. Imagining and looking for innovative outcomes. Brainstorming and not judging ideas early in the creative process, accepting all ideas as potential things from which something wonderful can grow. Thanks for your attention and the time.